Now let's create a profile for our staff users. Let's enter a name very similar to what we did for our contractors. Okay, and in this profile, our staff users can be enabled for web and tunnel mode. So we will make sure that both of those are turned on, which they are by default. So under tunnel mode, we will enable or use split tunneling. And this means that our connected users can access the user and the server network across the VPN tunnel. So those network objects were added to a group that we added earlier. So we're going to specify that under the routing address. Okay, and once they are logged in successfully, we want to assign our users an IP address from the address pool that we also created earlier. Okay, so now under web mode, let's enter a new title for the portal message. Okay, and we will use the blue theme and we will select, let's say, the 2-column display for the page layout. Do something different. And we will leave all of the web mode options checked. And let's go ahead and add a predefined bookmark listing our web server. So we'll say servers, we'll enter a name. The type is correct. Let's enter the IP of that server. And let's go ahead and add this profile. For the next part, let's go to settings, also under SSL. And here we will do a couple of things. First, we will enable our SSL VPN service, also called the listening interface, to be our WAN facing interface that connects to our lab internet cloud. We will use the default port for SSL, which is TCP port 443. So that means in order to access this web portal for SSL, we need to type in HTTPS followed by the WAN IP or the DNS that is mapped to that IP of our WAN facing interface of the firewall. Now you will also see a warning here that our admin page is listening also on HTTPS, so there is a conflict. But that pertains to the LAN facing interface on our firewall. Moving on, we have restrict access. And here we want the SSL VPN portal to be available for access by any host because we don't know where our staff or contractors could be coming from. For the idle logout, if a user is connected to the VPN and they haven't done anything in 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes, the user will be logged out automatically. Also, when you're dealing with SSL VPN, a server certificate is required. You can use the self-signed certificate, or you can purchase a certificate from a trusted certificate authority. I'll cover how you can install a certificate from a trusted CA in a later video update. But we will use the self-signed certificate for our deployment in this video. You can also require a client certificate to provide even more enhanced security as well. So in our environment, as we mentioned before, we'll be using both tunnel mode and web mode. For the tunnel mode, we will define the default settings and we will define or specify our custom IP address range. So we'll go ahead and click here and specify the range or the object that we added earlier. Okay. Now, under authentication and portal mapping, we will add our 2 SSL VPN profiles that we created for our environment. So let's first delete this guest group. So we'll go ahead and select it and delete it. We'll say OK. Okay, so now we're going to add a new entry where any user who logs in through the SSL VPN gateway as a staff user within our Active Directory domain will use the portal for our staff group. Okay, and let's add another entry where any user who logs in as a contractor will use the contractor profile. Okay. Now there's also a default entry, which means that any other user who logs in will use this profile, which would only provide web access, which is web mode. But let's go ahead and select our contractor profile that should be used. And we are done. And let's go ahead and apply our changes here under settings. Next, we need to create our SSL VPN policies that will use these settings and to make our solution officially active. So let's go ahead and click on this link up here to create those policies. This will lead us to a new policy where the source or the incoming interface is the SSL VPN tunnel interface that is created. So any user who VPNs using SSL VPN will be terminated to the WAN facing interface to access resources that are located on the LAN. So we'll select that for the outgoing interface. The source address will be the SSL VPN pool of addresses that will be assigned for our tunnel mode users. Our web mode users will not be assigned a dedicated IP address. For the source user, we will select our contractor group and our staff group. And the destination will be for any host on our user and server network for any service. Okay, and these actions will be accepted or allowed. That is important. And NAT does not need to be enabled here. So let's go ahead and turn that off. And let's turn on other, let's say, security features like antivirus services. And let's go ahead and select the employee profile. And that is it. Let's go ahead now and save our changes.